Hello and welcome back to Simple Money Podcast, Canada's own personal finance podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Sewick, also known as the Friendly Financial Coach. So today, we're going to be continuing our series on education planning. As we know, creating a plan to fund a child or relative's education can seem like a very unwieldy task. It's a challenge to even know where to begin. So as we discussed in the past podcast episode, the first step is really to have a destination. In this case, an estimate of how much an education will cost in the future. Unfortunately, this has always been a challenge when planning for post-secondary education. The costs have been increasing at such a higher rate than inflation, and finding applicable data can be a very big challenge. Thankfully, increasing access to data has allowed us to understand the past trends of educational costs and to use this data to forecast how much education will be in the distant future, empowering us to make a more comprehensive educational plan. On the most basic level, we need to determine how much money is estimated to be needed to fund a child's future education. Then, we maximize the available resources to get there. Today, we're speaking with Alfred Yang from proliteracy.ca. He's going to talk about how his organization helps answer the fundamental question about forecasting educational expenses. This includes tuition, books, living expenses, and more.
Hi everyone, my name is Alfred Yang and I run a company called Finovate.io. We focus on building financial technology. One of the products that we've developed is a platform called proliteracy.ca. It's a platform that helps students and parents plan finances for post-secondary education. We also have an education partnership with the Toronto District School Board to help educate students and parents along the same topics. Education planning is a very important topic and it's also a very complicated one. Being able to estimate the future cost of a post-secondary education can help create a more accurate financial plan. Tuition is typically the largest expense, but it's not the only one. The trend that we see is that tuition has increased at a much higher rate than inflation, about 6 to 7% in the province of Ontario. To give you an example, when I did my engineering degree at the University of Toronto, this was back in the late 90s, tuition was just over $4,000 a year. Nowadays, domestic students have to pay well over $15,000 a year just for the same degree. I have a daughter that's just turned 1 year old last week, and at this rate of increase, by the time she's ready for college in the year 2035, tuition for a 4-year program will be well over $150,000. Expenses on top of this would include accommodations, food, books, transportation, entertainment, and more. If this student decide to live away from home and rent on campus, this would add approximately an additional $60,000 in expenses for a 4-year program. Other expenses would probably add up to around $50,000 to $60,000 for the same duration. These amounts are intimidating, and that's why it's so vital to create an education plan early in the life of a child. Many options exist to help future students pay for their education. Our ESPs, scholarships, summer jobs, government grants, and more can help fund their education. If there's still a gap, then that's where borrowing options like student loans and personal line of credit will come in. So we developed proliteracy.ca to help parents and students understand all of this, to give Canadians a holistic picture about the finances related to post-secondary education. We use open data to help users forecast the cost of a post-secondary education and bring visibility to various funding options, like the ones we discussed today. Most of all, it's free for all Canadians to use. We love to hear your feedback. If any, you can reach us at proliteracy.ca.
That was Alfred Yang from proliteracy.ca. As you can see, being able to forecast the future cost of an education is extremely valuable, and proliteracy.ca is a great way to help determine that. Thanks again for listening to Simple Money Podcast. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly at info@ffcoach.ca or you can find me on Twitter at F_F coach. Take care and talk to you next week.